Nothing to do with gender, nothing to do with race, nothing to do with age. All of those are, in a sense, horrible generalizations. So what it is, in this case, it's uniqueness, it's idiosyncrasy, it's one person seeing the uniqueness and the idiosyncrasy of someone else and not judging it.
So her not saying, I worked full-time too, and you kids always had the hot breakfast.
Provider.
There you go.
Marshy's blind. Marshy, good boy. Watch out for the cactus. we have, one of my dogs is Marshmallow. He's a golden retriever. He's about
4 years past his life.
He's about 4 years past. He's about 13 years old, and he's blind and he's deaf. And we've chosen to put, and I don't know why we chose to do this, but for all the providers amongst you, we've chosen to put cactuses, cactuses with really strong, long spikes on each sort of corner that he would turn. And we didn't do it deliberately, but it just seemingly happened. And so our entire days are spent running around, desperately trying to ward him off from getting a huge spike stuck in his nose. So, yeah, that's true. I was just kidding about the whole thing. Everything's fine. We are here today to talk about providers. Provider, first question the provider asks in any situation is, are you okay? There is a certain natural giftedness that you have to pay attention to the emotional feelings of someone else. It's definitely a one-on-one thing. And you can't turn it off. And for you, it must be so weird because other people seem to go through life and they filter it out, or it's not immediately apparent how the person next to you is feeling, what's going on in their heart, in their spirit. But you've got the sort of filter that lets that in. It becomes almost like a physical sensation for you to feel the emotions of somebody else. And you take that on. You don't resent that person's feeling. That person's feeling is completely legitimate. You're interested in it. You're curious about it. You honor it. It's the most important part for you in your mind of being a human is being aware of somebody else's emotional state and holding it. And of course, around you, think about what that is. That doesn't mean that you're soft. Dr. Mary Hayes, who's on our team, Mary's a provider, but Mary's, and I'm sorry for saying this, Mary, but Mary's she can be blunt, she can be gruff, she can be short and to the point. So she's not, I don't think anyone who knows Mary really, really well would say that she's soft at all. She isn't, but she's aware of the emotional state of the people around her, and she instinctively gives it value. It's worth something. In fact, you can't even focus on something else until you paid attention to the emotional status of somebody else. And of course, when we are around you, Mary, or any other providers, we feel like someone's got our back. So like while pioneers feel light to us, providers feel like we are lifted up, we are supported, we are paid attention to. And of course, things speed up around you because we're not watching our back. We're not watching our back because you've got it. There's more innovation around providers because providers are like a catalyst for people to share their ideas, to share their confidences, to share their experiments even before they're ready. And we feel like that's safe to do around you. You're not going to shaft us. You've got us. So it's a weird thing because you think, well, a provider feels lovey. I don't know if it's lovey. It's I've got you and I can't shut that off. And so around you, we just feel so like we are and can be at our best around you. You may not even know this, but we don't shrink around you. We do this around you because it's like you've given us permission to be the most of us. You're not, if we stick our necks out, you're not going to cut them off. It feels like that to be around you. Like it's a multiplication of us around you, an amplification of us around you. It's an awesome strength when it's deployed at its best. You're also super inclusive. When someone's beyond the circle, you can feel their loss, and you'll bring them back in the circle. So it really is, when you think about entrepreneurship, when you think about leadership, when you think about running a team, provider is that catalyst that pulls people into that circle and then allows people in the circle to be their most them. Super powerful strength. Now, because you are so naturally tuned in to other people's emotional state and you can't not care about it, you hold everyone else up to that standard too. You do. And you can be ticked off with other people if they don't care for you in the same way that you care for them. It's one of those interesting things about all of these strengths. We judge other people by our own yardstick, right? So pioneers are forever judging other people for not moving fast enough. Creators are judging people who haven't really thought through to the kernel of the concept. And providers judge people and can be judgmental of people who don't care for them as much as they care for other people. So you can be thin-skinned, and you can be impatient and hurt because other people don't live up to your standards of what caring for someone else actually should look like. And of course, you should know, by the way, if you're a provider, you see the world. It's like you're a dog with a dog sense of smell. And you can smell so many more emotions than most of the rest of us can. We don't even know what you're talking about. And you're getting kind of ticked off with us. It's funny. Again, the same is true for every strength. If we're not careful, we judge other people by the strengths that we have. But boy, providers you're such a catalyst for bringing out the very best in all of us.
One quick question on
yeah.
that. You just talked about that they can sense people's emotional states.
Mm-hmm.
How is that different than stimulator?
Well, we're going to get to stimulator, I guess, tomorrow. But stimulator...
I mean, you don't have to talk about stimulator, but I know what that is.
Provider is one-on-one. Provider is catching the person's emotional state wherever it's at, one-on-one.
So because they listen really well?
They listen, they ask questions, they understand detail. Providers are forever explaining other people to other people.
That's so true.
Right?
Yes.
The providers that you have in your life are forever trying to explain to idiots like me why this person's doing what they're doing and why it's legit, why it's okay. I mean, look, I'm not saying there aren't some times when a provider will push people out of the circle, because sometimes the provider gets so upset about the behavior of a particular person that they will exclude. But it's never permanent with a provider. If you're a provider, you know this, and it confuses us sometimes, it confuses the rest of us sometimes, because on Monday, you were like, that person has got to go. They don't care about people enough, or they're not doing the right thing, or whatever it was that got them out of the circle. So on Monday, you're like, out of the circle. Your judgment kicks in. Thursday, you'll come back around and go, now, you know what? We got to bring him back in. We got to bring him back in. Because here's why. What you didn't understand was that they were behaving this way because of this, because of that, because it's almost like you see yourself as above everybody else. Don't take this the wrong way, but above everybody else, looking at the motivations and actions and reality of everybody else. And you can sort of see almost better than everybody else why people are doing what they're doing. You're the explainer of other people to the rest of us.
Do they value forgiveness? Like, are they good forgivers?
They're not immediately, and obviously it'll depend on your other strengths roles, but providers will always in the end forgive, because they know deep within them, they know that somebody else's behavior is always explainable to the person doing the behaving.
Function of being a human.
And it's they will always forgive a person for acting in a way that made sense to that person, and they'll understand the way that that person did what they did. That's why you as providers, I don't even know whether you know this, but you have great institutional memory. Like all the way through life, you'll think about each person in that situation that we were in that one time, and you'll remember how this person felt at that time, this person felt at that time. You're just aware of that. And so insofar as we understand memory, we understand that memories are really wrapped up in emotions. So when an emotion is really strong, it sticks. Now that's true for all of us, but because you are aware of each person's emotional state in situations, you remember more situations, and you remember the detail of those situations. So we will turn to you for institutional memory about our family, or institutional memory about our project or our school days. Insofar as the human experience is a emotional experience, providers, sit up. Sit up. Sorry, I get into it and then I'm like lower than I should be. Okay. But insofar as the human experience is an emotional one, providers are a lovely storyteller of our human experience, because they've got access to each person's emotional. I mean, if you've got, I don't know, provider creator, you might be a great novelist, because what you'll be, now you may be a great novelist with other strengths too, but the provider is the part of you that writes truth about the human experience, each human's experience.
Did you talk about two things that I'm really curious about? Did you already talk about trust and providers?
I did, yeah. Trust, yeah, I mean, trust is an outcome of the fact that people around you know that you are aware of what we're going through and what we're feeling, and you will hold it. You will hold space for us. So obviously, trust is an outgrowth of that. We talk a lot in the research on teams that on a great team, you need to have each person feel psychological safety. As though that's a switch you can just flip. Providers are the bringers, are the physical embodiments of psychological safety, which is why on a team, should you always have providers? Not necessarily, but when you have them, that's what they bring. When you turn your provider up to 11, that's what you're bringing to the rest of us, psychological safety.
What I love about providers in a meeting is, just thinking about Kevin, if we're 7 of us are around the table, he's going to make sure everybody has a voice.
Yes.
Which is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, and nobody's too difficult. I mean, you know, if there are people behaving wrongly, someone like Kev or someone like your mom will call them out. But they will also, as we were saying before, they will also defend. They will come around to defend and explain, because everybody's feelings, everybody's approach is legitimate. That's what a provider conveys. Just talking about your mom's this, right? Where is it with you?
Number 9.
It's number 9. Some people have thought, like, are some strengths more male, some more female? When we've ever had that conversation, provider is sometimes brought up as, are there more women providers than men? And as Dr. Mary Hayes would tell you, that isn't true at all. You're a mom, it's number 9. Your mom, is it 1 or 2? 1. My mom, I mean, by the way, my mom, super loving, pioneers for her number 1. She's off. she's off. I'm not saying we feel like we were left behind, that wasn't, but whatever I'm describing here with provider, there's a whole nother conversation going on in mom's head, and what she picks up, my mom's head versus your mom's head. So as with all these strengths and strengths roles, they aren't gender specific. There are as many female providers as there are male providers in terms of what we are defining as providers.
So my provider is 9, as you know, as you just said.
Well, if you work at it, if you just really work at it, take it again, you can move it up. Yeah.
But something that's really real for me.
So that's why you haven't fed your kids in the last joke.
I fed myself though.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Twice.
First.
So
sit up. Now I'm super conscious of like slouching.
Well, your head's sort of cut off. I feel, and I wonder what you'd say about this. I feel I can never please a provider. I feel like I don't I can never do something good enough.
Is this, you want to take this up with your mom in a therapy? keep going.
No, it's an interesting thing. I noticed that pattern.
Not that interesting then.
And I was thinking, is it because I don't understand them because it is so low? Or like, for instance, I had a person on my team who I knew liked to be recognized a lot. And so I would do that, but I never felt like I was doing it quite right. With my mom, I always feel like it feels a little, I'm not like her. And so I feel like they're a bit hard to please, unless I'm sorry, I didn't mean that, but in my world, it's maybe.
The thing about providers, I don't know if you heard all that, but my show was saying it's kind of hard to please. She feels like it's hard to please a provider. And if you are a provider, you should, if you can, get it into your head that it's not like everybody feels and sees the world the way that you do and then just ignores it. It's that you see so much more of people's actual experience and actual feelings. You see more of it, and so you can't not respond to it, hold where the person's at, understand where the person's at, and be there for that person in the way that they need you to be there for them. You can't not do that. You can not do that, because compared to most providers, and I know we shouldn't do person-to-person comparisons. I mean, this, as I said before, this standout assessment is what's called it's intrapersonal comparisons. It's really looking at your provider compared to your creator, compared to your influencer, rather than me comparing myself to you, right? So you shouldn't really compare yourself to your mom. It's really just in terms of the intrapersonal comparisons within you. Provider is number 9. You may have bags of provider in terms of the general population at large, but what it does mean in this case, if that's what you're feeling, is it means your mom sees way more of and feels way harder and feels it as legitimate, all of these different perspectives, feelings, approaches, details, explanations, rationalizations of a person, of another person, and responds to them. You don't see these things. She's frustrated because you don't see the world as vividly as she does. Or rephrased, Michelle's frustrated because she doesn't see the same world that her mom does. And her mom, is like many of us do, uses her own frame of reference to judge everybody else's frame of reference. By the way, Dari's amazing, obviously. But that's what we all do. It's the whole golden rule, right? That you should treat people as you would like to be treated, which sounds so great. And of course, its intent was to make us more caring about this. But if you really push on that statement, treat people the way that you would like to be treated, that presupposes that everyone has as much provider as Dari does. And they don't. And so the challenge for you is to be able to explain yourself so she can see you, not defend yourself, but explain yourself so your mom can see you. And the challenge for your mom is to be able to explain herself so you can see her. You're not going to be her. You will miss 8 out of 10 things that she sees. So for your mom, if that means that you consistently disappoint her, what that's really meaning is she's not seeing you. This whole thing is called I see you, I love you. The whole reason for saying that is you can't love what you can't see. Now that doesn't mean your mom doesn't love you, I'm not saying that at all. But your relationship is mediated through some ability to communicate who you are and some ability for her to communicate who she is. And there better be a shared expectation that you're not going to become her and she's not going to become you. Yes. She's additive to you.
Yes.
You are additive to her precisely because you don't have the same filter. The problems in relationships occur when there isn't an understanding of and an appreciation of the uniqueness of each of you. Nothing to do with gender, nothing to do with race, nothing to do with age. All of those are, in a sense, horrible generalizations. So what it is, in this case, it's uniqueness, it's idiosyncrasy, it's one person seeing the uniqueness and the idiosyncrasy of someone else and not judging it.
So her not saying, I worked full-time too, and you kids always had the hot breakfast.
Okay. Yes.
We could stop.
We could keep going down that. Look, that's what happens, right? In relationships, is that you run through life most of the time just trying to understand yourself, right? And the moment you sort of come to some understanding of who you are, you almost immediately kind of define yourself by looking at who other people are and how they act, and you legitimize yourself. You get confidence in your own credibility when you start to impose your view of the world on other people, because that establishes where you stand. The problem is other people are not you and aren't probably a very good frame of reference to use to learn about who you are, which is why, the standard assessment, we made it to try to help people have a language to describe who they are that wasn't in relation to anyone else. It's just in relation to Dari or me. Like, my strengths roles don't have anything to do with you. They are me, and I need to understand and own them. So, yes, providers can be hard to please. My dog is trying to get in and can hear us but can't see us.